you're 7 years old, you started selling golf balls back to people that had lost their golf balls. I think 7's a remarkable age to start a business, of course.
I'm very competitive. I love the idea of like trying to sell something to someone and make a bit of money. My dad didn't want to buy that surfboard for me, so I had to find another way to get it, and this was my motivation at the time.
For sure, it shows that you had the entrepreneurial DNA early on, and to find problems and then find solutions for those problems. So that's one of the most interesting aspects of an entrepreneur, because they see the world differently, and you had it from an early age.
Welcome to the Sandpit Startups podcast, where we journey into the minds of the brightest and the best the region has to offer. We're here to connect the entrepreneurs in the studio with the entrepreneurs listening at home. We sincerely hope the next half an hour or so motivates, educates, or inspires you. And if it does, you know the follow button is.
Today we are joined by Benjamin Mouflard, the co-founder of Chat Food. It's a very interesting journey that we'll be talking about today. It's the dream of every entrepreneur that they start with an idea and then also get acquired. So it's going to be an interesting journey from 0 to 1 and then 1 to 100. And we are really, it's a pleasure to have you join us in this show today.
Thanks for inviting me, guys. Very happy to be with you.
Absolutely. So if you don't mind, I'll kick us off.
Yeah.
You said a journey from 0 to 100, but I feel like actually the journey starts at 7, because I've sort of like listened to some of your pieces before, and you were talking about when you were 7 years old, you started selling golf balls back to people that had lost their golf balls. I think 7's a remarkable age to start a business, of course. What would you say is like your first lesson in business? What did that small enterprise teach you right off the bat?
Yeah, I think it's a good one. So just for the golf, like the golf ball business, it started as a fun exercise, with a friend. We were going in the water where people would usually lose their balls, and just like we liked the fact we could find, so we felt like, well, we can find a small treasure. And then we started to sell the golf balls, probably like where I was living was not too far from the hole number 1.
Okay.
We were at the end of the hole number 1, and we are trying to sell our golf ball here. It was working okay, but not super well.
Okay.
And at some point we decided to move from the number 1 and go to the number 8, which was just behind a water start.
Okay.
So, and this changed completely our ability to sell and our conversion rates. At the time, I didn't know what it was, but because basically hole number 8, like you are usually midway of your golf truck, you already have lost a few balls,
in.
so you are you are. At hole number 1, you still have your bags full of new golf balls, so you don't really feel the need to buy new ones, right? But on the number 8, you already lost a few. It was just behind a water start, so the chance that you had lost just one now were quite high. And then suddenly it was like a much bigger conversion rate. So probably the first lesson, I didn't know it at the time, was you can do the same exercise, but if you put yourself in a position where you answer a problem that's stronger, and then it works much better. So it's always kind of stayed with me about try to solve a problem that's strong and put yourself at the right moment for that.
Fantastic.
For sure, it shows that you had the entrepreneurial DNA early on, and to find problems and then find solutions for those problems. So that's one of the most interesting aspects of an entrepreneur, because they see the world differently, and you had it from an early age.
Yeah, I don't know, but I'm very competitive, so I love the idea of like trying to like sell something to someone and like make a bit of money. And yes, I think at the time, like my motivation, like I wanted to buy my surfboard, and I think like kudos to maybe my parents. It probably doesn't work with every kid, but in my case, it was like my dad didn't want to buy that surfboard for me, so I had to find another way to get it, and this was my motivation at the time, like try to make a bit of money. And in the end, again, I think now that I'm a dad, You need to make sure you understand well the personality of your kids. But in my context, with my personality, it was perfect because this was what was firing me up. Yes. And I still remember the day where I had enough money to go and buy this surfboard, and that was
a good day. That was a good day. Awesome.
So from your journey at 7 with your first venture and now to Chat Food, right? You've come a long way with what you've done. It's incredible for people outside to see the journey. We talk about the industry itself. The food tech industry was a disruptive industry. There are so many startups across the world in different places who have become big unicorns. And then Chat Food comes in this part of the world, right? Disrupting the already disrupted food tech market. So how was your experience there, and what was the thought behind Chat Food then?
Yeah, so I mean, it might look like you always say like this. It happened like very fast and overnight things, but like it's always hard to express this because it's a combination of so many factors that built along the way and along the years. So I think for me there was like several like key milestones that really played into it. The first one is that one was quite important was I was at Facebook in my early years and careers, and I was in charge of the travel industry. And I had a lot of hotels that were coming to us at Facebook and asking us to help them to connect back with their customers because Booking.com was there in the middle and was taking away a lot of their direct relationship, obviously their profit and so on. So this is something that always struck me about how can we, like, I didn't really like that model, and how can we help companies to take back control of and connect back with their customers. And I always have been very sensitive, which is probably the second motivation for me.
Okay.
And one of the key one, my dad is a small business owner, and I have always been very sensitive to helping like small business to grow, like the community. And I always believed that it was very important that for our society, like small business and local business in general can perform well, can do well. Before Chat Food, we had with my co-founder Vinny, we had done like a lot of companies that didn't work. We tried, we made a lot of mistakes. One key learning that we had was that we just before Chat Food, we had launched a kind of e-commerce for cars that was working very well.
Yeah.
But 6 months down the line, we kind of like lost a bit the motivations because car was not something that was motivating us. Like that was really like passionating. But to help local businesses and to give them access to technology that they could not probably have before, this was something that was really firing us up every day. Second thing, that as I was always sensitive about small business and trying to help them, when I moved back to Dubai and I was trying to order food, I was trying to order directly from those guys because I knew from Booking that going on the aggregators and marketplace was not the best way to help them.
Right.
And then the experience was so bad, so frustrating. Like either you would call them or you would go on clunky website. So that's the second takeaway. That's first that like this was something that was really firing up. Second is that from our personal experience, there was something that we didn't like and that we wanted to solve. And we kind of knew that we could probably do better, but this was something that was also like a very exciting challenge for us to how can you make direct ordering and ordering directly to a business, a process that's easy and that's as nice as when you go on Deliveroo or Talabat or those guys. And then the last piece, which is also very, very important, is that you might have something that fires you up. You might have something that you think you can have an impact and a problem that you live yourself and that you want to fix. But then you need to make sure that this problem is something that other people also have and that people are willing to pay for that. And so this is when we started to go with Vinny, like to go and discuss with a lot of like restaurants owners, trying to understand like, hey guys, how do you feel about the market and so on. And very quickly we got the validation that here there was like a lot of restaurants were willing to pay for a solution like us. if we could build it, right?
Right.
So the three things together, kind of validating that people are willing to pay, that this is something that passionates you, and that it comes from a struggle that you have on your side. Basically, when you have those three things, then we kind of went into it and it started like this. Yeah,
that's interesting because I'm aware that you sort of had, I think Chatfu was there about your 20th idea, something like that.
Yeah,
and obviously, in order to even get to the 20th idea, you need to qualify a lot of ideas and disqualify a lot of ideas too. And without really pursuing them, because obviously time is limited, you can't really explore the entire idea by execution. You have to rather just disqualify it in your mind. What are you thinking about in your head in terms of these factors that do go towards disqualifying it, like right off the bat? Obviously, you mentioned that you didn't really care too much about the e-com for cars business, but what else is there to think about for like quick disqualification?
Yeah, look, for instance, if I take the e-com for cars, overall, I think it's like the car, like first is the size of the market, right? It's a huge market, especially in that region. So this makes it like probably an interesting market to look into. Second, that do you solve a problem that's like big enough and that happens also often? It's very challenging. Like you can solve a big problem that comes very rarely.
Yeah.
But they really need to be very, very big problem. Like for instance, like I don't know, when you organize your holidays, it's a problem that maybe happen once or twice a year, so it doesn't happen often, but it's a very big problem. So then you are willing to spend a lot of money for that. So there are business here, but it's very difficult.
Sure.
So then asking yourself, like, is this problem come often and is big enough so people who wants to pay for it? Obviously, is this something that you can relate and you really get fired up with? And is it feasible? The feasibility part is probably something that's also very difficult to know quite off the bat, because there is a lot of factors that you don't know at the beginning. So here you need to iterate a little bit more. Yeah. But already like those kind of frameworks helps you to go through the ideas. And for sure, when you did the first mistake once and then you move to another one, and you then quite quickly after sometimes you build this framework, you can eliminate some ideas and go faster on iterating on the new ones. But there is always a new things that come up that you didn't know before. So it's always a challenge. But the idea to try to fail fast is very strong. And honestly, early on, I think the fact to really be motivated about what you do is something that's very, very key. If I had to choose one, probably it would be this one, because you never know, like, technically it can be a project that you can do for the rest of your life, right? When you launch a company, like it's something that so you need to really make sure, and it's super hard, so you need to make sure that it's something that's really deep inside, motivates you deeply.
Oh, yeah, that's interesting, because you could like the idea, but do you want to do it for the next 30, 40 years? Obviously, you want to get acquired in a few years, quick acquisition and be done with it, but it could drag on.
Yeah, and it's true also. So I had a conversation not a long time ago with an entrepreneur who was telling me about the relationship with her and his co-founders. And she was like mentioning a few doubts that she had about the relationship and like would it work and so on. And the same applies in that case. Like you are going to go on an adventure with someone like it's like a wedding and a marriage and so on. So you cannot leave any like frustrations, any ego go in the way, because otherwise it bites you later on, and you would have lost like 3 or 4 years lying to yourself about this. So like the same thing with the people you work with. It's super important to be like brutally honest and direct to make sure that there is no like underlying issue that you try to hide because you think things are going to get better, which never does.
Yeah, I suppose it's not really talked about too much. Like having a co-founder is almost like having a wife or something.
Like a partner,
yeah. They should start doing like therapy for co-founders.
But it's if you look at the early stage startup figures, it's the number one reason for failure.
Really?
Like, way after that is funding. Like not solving an issue,
funding,
a small market, lack of funding, and so on. It's like co-founders who like end up don't getting along.
A bit
ego.
Toxic,
Like the number one thing I see when I discuss with someone is that they initially do like a 50-50 split on the share. And then one like starts to grow frustration because I'm doing more, and I should have more. And it's so hard to do a startup that if you start to lose even like 10% of your energy
it affects
into
the
this,
business.
it's you don't want to lose energy into this kind of thing. So it's tough also on that front.
Wow, co-founders need couples therapy. That's what I'm getting.
That's why you see the 20 failed ideas. Are good in that sense because we failed a lot of time, but we learned one thing, that we were working super well together. That we are very aligned on many things. There was no ego, and so we could really go a long way together on that front.
Fantastic.
If I can, so an essential part of the startup is also, of course, you mentioned the co-founders, and then there is this idea, and I feel that people, when they, usually first-time entrepreneurs, think that their idea is super unique. But there are people who have done this somewhere else. Like, for example, Food Panda was a copy of DoorDash. Kareem was a copy of Uber. So when somebody is coming into, let's say, the market with chat food, so there might be some references you had across the globe, right? And then a burning question from investors like, hey, what happens if those guys are there in the market as you are, and how would you like to compete? What is the competitive advantage that you shared with investors that will probably give some insight on what chat food also basically does compared to other food tech companies?
Yeah, so first on your first part of the question about like people who are shy to talk about their ID because they are afraid that someone will take it. Well, this is a mental shift that you need to do, is that first, probably you have like hundreds of people who are working on the same idea at the same time somewhere in the world, if it's a relevant idea and if you're solving a big problem. And second, the probability that you talk to someone that's going to steal your idea is so low that in fact the trade-off is much better to talk about it, get feedback, get honest feedback, and then you are learning much more. So it's something that we all do that mistake. I did it at the beginning. That you think that like the first company, the first thing I did was to trademark the logo, like as if like I spent, I don't know, like 500 euros to trademark the logo, as if I was scared that someone would come and pick me. And then you quickly realize that this is I think we never... not say, but we never trademark chat food logo. But anyway, and so to the second part of the question, there is also a lot of myths around. Like it's also something that with a bit of experience you realize, but there is a lot of myths about. I don't know, like a network effect, finding a moat that nobody will be able to copy.
True.
So the truth is that if you put aside like some exceptional companies and completely outliers, like I don't know, Facebook, who had like a moat that was incredible, Airbnb, Google, and so on. Most of the very, very successful companies, they just executed better on something that a lot of people are trying to issue. Like one of my favorite companies, Intercom, that I find these companies fantastic. You have so many other companies who are trying to do the same thing, but they are amazing at building a product that people love. They are super focused on what they do. They have a great internal organization, and then they go much faster and they execute much better than anybody else. And if you listen to the founders and so on, they're also very passionate about. They really like care about what they are doing. So I think before like trying to really think about like what's going to protect you from competition at the very beginning. If you have we come back to the basics of market, passions, and if you execute well, like you will succeed. You will be able to build a good business. You will be able to get a good amount of market share. And then later on, maybe you can ask yourself, like, okay, if I want to build like $1 billion business, like what do I need to create to go to the next stage and so on? But it's very rare that you cannot build a business to a few $1 million or several $1 million of revenue. If you work on a good market and on a good product, if you don't, and if you focus well on the execution and you execute well, nothing can stop you. And competition is cool because it keeps you on your toes, and sometimes it influences you, and it's also good because it means that you are on a market that's relevant. But it's usually never the reason why you don't succeed.
So just in terms of competition, so you started Chat Food in Dubai, and I think a big factor for that was because the culture here is prone to ordering, like via phone. And you mentioned it yourself when you first came here, you were trying to order. But with that being said, that obviously creates a need, and then other players fulfill that need. So how do you kind of weigh up that decision? Would you rather, and obviously you did make this decision, would you rather come to a place where the need is there but there's competition, or go somewhere else where the need isn't there yet but there is no competition? Like, what made you sort of lean in one direction?
So I think I had the view early on, but I didn't manage to execute well enough on this. That's for me, Dubai was always a very great pilot market or test market, because you were confronting yourself to the toughest competitions. It's overall like a small market. There was like already a lot of big players. It's something that everybody has eye on, and so I always saw Dubai as a good test market, but obviously it's a very small market. So, but the thing that's like, if I would have to do it again, and we didn't do probably well enough, is that I would try to validate that I can succeed in Dubai, which we did, and then go out of Dubai very, very fast as possible.
Oh, really?
Really? Okay.
And go on much bigger markets.
Like the neighboring countries, the Saudi.
And then so more. Also it's also often kind of like logical steps to go to Saudi, because it seems that it's but in the end, one Saudi is completely different from Dubai.
The market,
there's nothing to see, especially when you are not like from the region, or you're not a local. Like Dubai is very international, Saudi is still very local. So you have a lot of things that you don't understand that you need to. And in the end, it's still it's a 40-50 million people market, which is not that big comparing to, I don't know, Europe, US, Australia, even India.
Yes.
So I would also question a lot the fact that the next logical step is to go to Saudi. Like, if you look at a company that did this very well, is Fresha. They started here in Dubai, and very quickly they took capital, they took money, and they went to UK, US, and now there are like 40,000 beauty salons across the globe, and the number one market in the US. And they did the playbook of growth, international growth,
instead of just the Middle East.
And they will definitely not have reached that space. So, and on the other end, you have companies like Tabi, who, because of their core business, was extremely relevant to that part of the world, and that was making a lot of sense for them to focus on this. So. It's not always the case. I think in our case we would have benefited to go outside of Middle East much faster than we did.
And of course, market expansion is one of the ways to grow the business. But before that, there is sometimes the requirement of funds in order to expand. As in any tech companies, the initial days, the unit economics aren't great, but as you scale, then that's when the unit economics get better. So how was your fundraising journey in this market, especially because you've been in other markets and you have been I've seen different cycles. So your thoughts on that?
So there is also a lot of points in this. I think the takeaway that I get is that you really need to understand which game you are going to start to play if you go the fundraising routes.
Okay.
So basically, like, if you take money from a venture capital investment firm, then they have like a portfolio of companies, and they need to have one or two that does like 100x their investment, and that's how they make
balance
their money,
it out,
right? So what they want you to do is to grow extremely fast. So you need to be ready and understand that this is a game you are going to play. So, for instance, if you start from Dubai, then either you have a very strong knowledge of the local market, and you know that you are going to be able to build $1 billion company in this market. Example, Tabi is a great example.
It's doing that.
Or you need to go out of Dubai as fast as possible with the money that you can take from here. But you need to be very clear about this. You need to be also ready that on your side, it's a different game that you are playing. Like, you need to go like super fast. You need to hire and so on. And as a first-time entrepreneur, it's not always easy to have this mindset. It took me personally, like, we initially bootstrapped the business, so we didn't raise money. Then we had good opportunities to raise money because we already had some traction. So I will go after in what I think is important early on as a first-time entrepreneur to be able to be attractive for VCs if you think this is the right way to go. But I didn't have all of that in mind, right? So I think in a nutshell, I can say that I raised money without really understanding what it meant raise money.
Okay.
And so it's very important to be very clear about the fact that like you need to be, it's do or die, and you need to go like super fast to grow the business on big markets. And that's and if you don't feel like this is for you, and this is perfectly fine, there are a lot of other ways to build a great business and to also make exits and so on. Or you can also be very clear with your investors about the fact that, look, I'm going to take your money for the first time. With that money, I'm going to turn my business profitable, and then I'm going to grow slower. And I'm not going to try to conquer the world, but I'm going to try to build a good, solid business that eventually, I don't know, you have other firms and so on that can buy, or I can just continue like this. But it's very important to be very aligned with yourself, with your co-founders about like what you want to achieve with your business.
What is super fast? Like, what does a day in the life kind of look like when you're moving super fast, when you've been acquired and they expect you to scale to that level? What's the co-founder doing? Like, what is your day when you're doing that?
So I got this advice from a great VC that didn't invest with us, but we were talking about it. It was like you should aim to never do twice the same things.
Okay.
As a co-founder, like you should try to like do a task, understand how it works, and then take someone to replicate, and then you go and focus on something else. And I've been very bad at this.
Okay.
So it's very, very difficult. I understand better now how to do, but initially it's tough. So one of that is like on the execution. Second is obviously on the vision. Like after our first fundraising, we should have taken we should have been very disciplined and taken a big part of that money and go somewhere else and open an office and do something else with that money. Like, boys, there was COVID, so it was a bit more difficult. Maybe we would have done things differently at the time, but yes, it's a matter of weeks and months, and it's a mindset that's like the company that acquired us, Deliverect, did this amazingly well. Like they grew at a pace that was incredible, and they had this very intentional growth in mind, and they already had done it in the past. But you can really feel now inside the company that it was all planned to go at this speed and so on. So that's exactly that. Or I don't know, like you can take example like Ep20 here. Ep20 did this very well, and they grew very, very quickly. And I think this is something that with my co-founder we also, when we were going to their office, we could feel, we were coming. There is a sense of urgency. There is a vibe in that company that is very special, and maybe we were like, how can we create the same vibe in ourselves? So, it's a mindset that some people have, some people feel comfortable with, and it's honestly not for everyone. Yeah. So, but that said, if you want to, if you think this is the way you want to do, and you want to build a business with venture capital and grow it, I think as a first-time founders in that part of the world, it's especially now with a context that's much more difficult. If I would be a VC, I would look at a few things. So team is very important. I would spend a lot of time to try to understand the dynamics in the team and with the co-founders to make sure that they work well together.
Okay.
I would try to assess like the motivation. Like you need to show that you are really like deeply motivated about what you do, and you are not going to like 6 months or 1 year down the line feel like you don't want to do this anymore. So early signs for that are, especially here in Dubai and in that part of the world, cost of life is very expensive.
It is.
So it's practically like it's much easier in France, but it's practically impossible to just leave your job, think I'm going to take 6 months or 9 months to build my business and do it. Unless you have savings, it's very, very difficult. So basically you need to do that as you are doing your daily job, and you need to show that you are able to be disciplined, motivated enough to work on the weekend, make sacrifices about like, I don't know, like your social life, because this is what you want to do, and this is what you are focused on. So I would look into like those kind of signs, like what shows me that guy really
is into it.
And then like start to show early signs growth or engagement or
traction,
a lot of people also you meet on the first time founders, they say, yeah, so I need to build my app. I'm going to hire an agency. They're going to do this. And then I cannot really start until I have the product, right? Which is the number one mistake that everybody does. And then one thing that you learn is that, okay, in fact, 95% of you could do it with a WhatsApp group. You could add like people to your
WhatsApp business, and you can still get it done.
An amazing example that and an app that I love to use now is called Baraka. It's
Baraka. Okay, I've heard. It's a YC
like it's a kind of Robinhood for the Middle East, like to buy shares and a trading app. It took them, I think, like 1 year to build, because to build a product for people to buy shares, like on the US, it's not easy. You cannot build that so they could have just like spent 1 year in like a hidden mode, just building, and then but in fact they really took the road of like building a community. They created a newsletter. They were like very diligent about like sending information about the stock market, and I think like the day they launched, they already had like 20 or 30,000 people actively reading their newsletters, and so then like they had like a super nice growth they raised, and now it's like probably the top app in terms of trading. And it's a good lesson that you have so many ways to show that attraction. And obviously, like if I am an investor and I have the guy who shows me he's motivated, he's working obviously on an idea and a market that makes sense. And he has shown like a good team, and then he shows in like that he has built a community, and then a lot of people would be willing to give you money. I think the UAE doesn't lack money; they probably lack good entrepreneurs.
Yes.
So if you manage to like show this kind of early signs, it's not difficult to raise money. The first round the seed round, we didn't have a pitch deck. We just presented our idea, explained what we are doing, and it was enough because this is at the very early stage. This is what you need to have as a conviction as a VC firms to think, okay, it's worth for me to give like a few $100,000 to those guys to explore more what they do. So the first tickets, if you have those things, should not be super difficult in the region.
This is a masterclass every entrepreneur needs: how to raise hundreds of thousands with no PowerPoint presentation or anything.
That's a super skill. It's
legit. That's incredible. But look, sorry. I know you obviously had a bit more to say there, but we're really running out of time, so we'll just have to wrap up. If you want to just maybe summarize what you were just thinking of about to say into like your final nugget of knowledge, and just to leave with the viewers, that would be incredible.
Yeah, look, I think it's a very exciting time at the moment to like for anyone who wants to like try to launch their company. It's obviously not easy path, but the journey when you do that with again like people that you get along well is like amazing. And so I cannot be more grateful to have had the opportunity to do it, to now like be able to take our products and try to launch it globally, which we didn't do well enough as well. So everybody like should try to give it a shot again if they feel that this is something that's for them.
Awesome.
Amazing.
And we're grateful to have had you on the show and share your experiences.
Thank you so much.
It was a fantastic talk.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thanks.